Today I'm going to show you how to solve the volume of cylinders, cones, and spheres when it's missing a height or a radius. So first I'll draw the cylinder. And the volume of this cylinder, we'll say, is 12.6 feet cubed, or cubic feet. Here's the radius. You can find it on the top or the bottom. Remember, the radius is half of the diameter. In our radius, we're going to keep simple and just say that it's 1 foot. The height is what we're going to look for in this cylinder. So we're going to put a question mark here because we don't know what it is. Now remember, this is the first formula that we learned. The volume of a cylinder is pi r squared h. So now we're going to fill in the information that we know and just turn it into an equation. We know that the volume is 12.6 cubic feet. It's not 12.6 cubed, that's just the unit. So it's 12.6. We put it in for the V. And then remember, the rounded version of pi is always 3.14. The next thing we'll fill in is the radius. Remember, when it's all smushed together like this, it means that we're multiplying. So I'm just adding a little dot in the middle to indicate that we're multiplying. But our radius is 1 foot, so it's 1 squared, which we know is 1, because 1 times 1 is 1. Now we don't know what the height is, so we're just going to use the h for that. Now we're going to go through and do whatever math is possible. Carry down the 12.6 because we're not touching it yet. You don't want to lose it or leave it behind. So the only math possible here is 3.14 times 1 times 1, which we know is 1, times 3.14, which is just 3.14. Now don't forget, we didn't do anything with the h, so we need to carry that down. And it's smushed together, so again, it means 3.14 times h. To undo multiplication to get the h by itself, that means we have to divide. So 3.14 divided by 3.14 is just 1 and it cancels out. And because we did it on one side, we have to do the same thing to the other. So 12.6 divided by 3.14 is 4.01. Now the whole point was to get h by itself, so we carry the h down. Depending on the instructions that are on your test or your quiz, you may leave it like this, but we're going to round it to the nearest whole number. So our height equals 4 feet. It's one measurement. That's why it's just 4 feet, not 4 feet squared or 4 feet cubed. So now we'll move on to a cone. And remember, a cone is just 1/3 of a cylinder. And the volume of this cone is going to be 78.5 meters cubed, or cubic meters. Here's our radius. And we don't know the radius in this problem. There's our height. And our height is 12 meters. Now because a cone is 1/3 of a cylinder, the volume equals 1/3 of the cylinder. So 1/3 pi r squared h. And again, we're just going to fill in what we know. Our volume is 78.5, not cubed, just 78.5. We don't do anything with the 1/3 quite yet, so we just carry that down. And our pi is rounded to 3.14. And again, I'm just putting the little multiplication signs in between, just to indicate that when it's smushed together like that, it's multiplied. Now we don't know our radius, so we can't plug anything in for that. So we're just going to carry down the r squared. However, we do know our height. Our height is 12 meters, so we're going to plug that in for h. And now we just have an equation, just like we did with the cylinder. So now we just follow the rules for an equation and go through and do whatever math we can. So you could do 1/3 times 3.14 times 12 all at once, but if you're doing this in your head or you don't want to mess up where you are, you could do 1/3 of 12, which is 4, and then do times 3.14. We're going to do it in 2 steps here just so I don't confuse anybody. But if you are okay and confident, you could do all 3 numbers at the same time. But we're going to do it in 2 steps. Now remember, we don't know what r is, so we have to remember to carry down the r squared. And we didn't do anything with the 78.5, so we carry that down. So now we still have a little bit of math that we can do before we move on to anything else. So 4 times 3.14 is the math that we can do here, and that equals 12.56. And that's still multiplied by r squared. And once again, we have not done anything with the 78.5, so we carry that down. So now that we have 12.56 times r squared, we have to undo that multiplication to get radius by itself. So we have to divide by the 12.56. That's going to cancel out and be 1 times r squared, so just r squared. Because we did it on one side, we have to do the same thing to the other to keep the equation balanced. So we're going to divide by 12.56 over here as well. So 78.5 divided by 12.56 is 6.25, and then we carry down the r squared. We didn't do anything with it, so we can't leave it behind. And dividing by 12.56 was the whole point, to get the r by itself. Now to undo a square, we do a square root. So that's going to give us 1r, but because we did it on one side, we do it on the other. So the square root of 6.25 is 2.5. So 2.5 meters equals your radius. Now the last shape that we're working on is a sphere. And remember, a sphere does not have a height because the height is the diameter, which is 2 times the radius. So the volume of this sphere is going to be 33.5. And that is going to be centimeters cubed, or cubic centimeters. We're going to have to find our radius. Now, our formula for the volume of a sphere is volume equals 4/3 pi r cubed. And this is r cubed because we don't have a height. So plug in what we know. The volume is 33.5. We're not doing anything with the 4/3, so carry that down. And the rounded version of pi is 3.14. And then we're looking for the radius, so it's just times r cubed. Just carry that down. Now I know some of you are really good at doing the 3.14 times 4 divided by 3 on your calculator, but if you can't remember that, just think of it as a big fraction. So carry down the 33.5 because we're not doing anything with it yet. But this is basically a big fraction where it ends up being 4 times 3.14 on the top divided by 3 times 1 on the bottom, which is just 3. Now don't forget to carry down your r cubed because we didn't do anything with it. Okay, carry down the 33.5 and then do the math for the fraction. So 4 times 3.14 is 12.56, and then we divide that by 3. And then carry down the r cubed. Now I know this is a couple of extra steps, and you probably could have done it on the calculator in a couple of seconds, but if you're having trouble remembering how to do the fractions, it's helpful to break it down this way and just do it one step at a time. So we carry down the 33.5, and then 12.56 divided by 3 is 4.19, and we still carry down the r cubed because we have not done anything with it yet. So now this is 4.19 times r cubed. To get rid of the multiplication, we're going to divide. So we divide by 4.19 for it to cancel out and be 1 times r cubed, or just r cubed. Because we did it on one side, we do it on the other to keep it balanced. So 33.5 divided by 4.19 is 8. And now we carry down our r cubed. We've got the radius by itself. That was our goal. Now remember, in the last problem, to undo a square, we had to do a square root. And that left us with just a radius. But when you have a radius cubed, we have to do a cube root, and that will cancel out and give us 1 radius. But we have to do it to both sides, so the cube root of 8. And what this is asking us is what times what times what equals 8. The cube root of 8 is 2, because 2 times 2 times 2 is 8. So our radius is 2 centimeters. I hope this was helpful.